Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Okay, I think we're all here. So it's our custom to introduce ourselves. My name is Henry.
Christian. My name is Steve. David. Prasada Chitta. Bob. Jim. Stephen. Mark.
Andrea.
Grisha. Jeff.
Matthew.
I'm David.
I'm Brad.
Jeff.
Tom.
My name is Cass.
Ron. Tim.
Hey, Richard.
Tony.
Jerry.
Bob.
And online, let's see, we have James, Harley, Tom, Don, Frisco Wolf, Andres, and Giddis. Now, let me tell you a little bit about our speaker, Matthew Brensilver, and then he will speak. Matthew teaches retreats at the Insight Retreat Center at Spirit Rock and other Buddhist centers. He was previously program director for Mindful Schools, and for more than a decade was a core teacher at Against the Stream Buddhist Meditation Society. Matthew worked as a clinical social worker, serving severely and persistently mentally ill adults and adolescents. He subsequently earned a PhD from the Dvorak Peck School of Social Work at USC, where he was a provost fellow. His dissertation examined the mechanisms of risk and resilience in maltreated adolescents in a large longitudinal study in South Los Angeles. Before committing to teach meditation full-time, he spent years doing research on addiction pharmacotherapy at the UCLA Center for Behavioral and Addiction Medicine. Each summer, Matthew lectures at UCLA's Mindful Awareness Research Center on the intersections between mindfulness, science, and psychotherapy. He serves on the board of directors at Spirit Rock. Matthew is also the co-author of 2 books about meditation during adolescence and continues to be interested in the unfolding dialogue between Buddhism and science.
Okay, thank you, Henry. I do not know who you just described, but he sounds like he has his shit together. And, thank you for the invitation, and happy to be with you. And we'll offer some reflections and welcome questions. You can raise your hand whenever, or we can wait till finish. Whatever's alive in the room is good by me. And the theme is equanimity in interpersonal life, the Dharma of other people, that little thing, So the Onion, which sometimes seems like a Dharma publication, the satirical newspaper, has this like happy couple, and then there's like an inset with a third person, looking kind of dour or something like that on the side, and the title of the story is Soulmate Dropped for New, Better Soulmate. So at a kind of fundamental level, we need each other. Like, the belonging is considered a kind of just about as primal a need as there is. And yet, if we deeply understand dukkha, namely unquenchability, unsatisfactoriness, suffering, if we deeply understand dukkha, we do not expect another person to be our nibbana. And so it's this interesting tension where we have to be respectful of what one another person or even community can do for one's heart. And we have this fundamental kind of longing. And so from a Dharma perspective, I feel like understanding dukkha, the Buddha said, understand suffering, comprehend it. And to understand suffering allows us to accurately predict what satisfaction, gratification is on offer and what is not. And knowing that other people, knowing that no experience can end craving, helps us honor all the incredible beauty that other people can do for our heart. The psychoanalyst Lacan, kind of emphasizing the depth of projection and unquenchability in love, famously said this like very depressing thing. And I don't even understand all of Lacan and French post whatever, the kind of very esoteric psychoanalytic philosophical articulation, but it's like the line was, love is giving what you don't have to someone who doesn't exist. That is effed up. It's like, and I don't think it's that bad. Lacan had his own problems, but it's like, but I know what he's talking about. So, dukkha, that word usually rendered as suffering, but sometimes unsatisfactoriness, it constellates at different levels. It constellates in a single human life. I've served on a lot of boards and different things. At every organization is weird in its own way, and it's almost like the First Noble Truth constellates at the level of the group, and it feels like, well, if we just change the organizational structure, or this or that, it's like, no, you're fighting against the tide coming in. It's like there's something always wrong, and you live in a certain state of stress, which is sometimes how dukkha is rendered. Same thing for relationships. It's like there's a way, and it's worth considering. What is the kind of first noble truth within human relationship of all kind, not just a kind of partnership or something, but of all kinds. So I remember there was a Joe Frank radio story, very interesting. He would splice in, real artist, he would splice in clips of Jack Kornfield, old clips of Jack Kornfield. And Jack told me that Joe never asked his permission, never paid him $1, but he would splice in these Jack Kornfield things. And it was hard to tell whether it was a sincere kind of way of a respite from the insanity that Joe Frank was often describing, and then this kind of Dharma, this mountain stream kind of wisdom and kindness, or whether Joe was it was almost like satirizing the Buddhist approach. I don't totally know. But one of the stories was that I remember from Joe Frank, it was two people meet, they fall in love, and they agree that at the very first moment of disconnection, they're going to split up, And it was and they go, and they're in love, and they're, it's beautiful, and everything's in attuned, and someday they made love, and then one of them said something and the other like kind of misconstrued it, and it was like, that's it, it's over, and they go their own ways, and it's like we could take that approach in the realm of care and love and all of that, right? But maybe more wisdom is something like acknowledging that to relate to other people entails a measure of tolerating ambivalence, which is sometimes the synonym that I use for dukkha, like usually suffering, but sometimes it's like, oh yeah, ambivalence captures something. Things are not just one way. We want them, that couple wanted them to be just one way. They are not, right? Ambivalent. Both sides, and a charge in both directions. And in interpersonal life, the kind of the opportunities for equanimity to like open the heart to the imperfection of the moment, the imperfection of the other person, the imperfection of a community, the imperfection, to open, to equanimize ambivalence, the opportunities just abound. And so this is Catherine Schultz. She says, even the strongest sentiments are intermittent and inconstant, forever obliged to share the stage with other members of emotions' ensemble cast. Grief with gratitude, anger with boredom, happiness with irritation, frustration with amusement, and on in endless permutations. Most of us instinctively resent this intermingling. When we're happy, we want to be wholly happy, not also missing our father, or worried about work, or infuriated by the customer service at the phone company. That appetite for contentment makes perfect sense, but we often long to experience our disagreeable feelings uninterrupted as well. In part, that's because misery has a kind of inertia to it. There's something about a bad mood that wants perversely to persist. I've felt at various points in my life that I do not want to venture out to a social event because I would have to pretend to be happy, forgetting the very real possibility that once there, I would actually be happy. Or perhaps, more accurately, believing that I did not want to feel better. Worse, I have sometimes persevered in a pointless argument simply because I was kind of in a sour mood and that would rather fight than be improved. This kind of emotional intransigence is common. Anger wants only to be angry. Levity is deadly to it, as is compassion. Accordingly, it resists them both. Boredom rejects as boring everything that might vanquish it. Loneliness wants only to be left alone, and grief is so terrified of betraying itself that it wants only to grieve. Our heart moves in all these different directions, and our capacity to actually open to the experience of ambivalence about ourselves, about others, is a kind of hallmark of psychospiritual maturation. Now, sometimes ambivalence is a function of delusion. Sometimes if we can see more clearly, we actually can resolve the tension, and we can see what we really want. There really is a yes and a no. But sometimes ambivalence is a function of clarity. It's not that we're just hopelessly divided soul, that like the ambivalence is unresolvable. We simply cannot banish the dissenting voices within. And we have to learn to live alongside of it. In psychoanalytic theory, the ambivalence runs deep. This is Adam Phillips. Says, in Freud's vision, we are above all ambivalent animals. Wherever we hate, we love. Wherever we love, we hate. If someone can satisfy us, they can frustrate us. And if someone can frustrate us, we always believe that they can satisfy us. And who frustrates us more than ourselves? We are ambivalent about anything and everything that matters to us. Indeed, ambivalence is a way we recognize that someone or something's become significant to us. This means we're ambivalent about ambivalence, about love and hate and sex and pleasure and each other and ourselves and so on. Wherever there's an object of desire, there must be ambivalence. But Freud's insistence on our ambivalence is also a way of saying we're never quite as obedient as we seem to be. That where there's devotion, there is always protest. Where there's trust, there's suspicion. Where there's self-hatred or guilt, there's also self-love. We may not be able to imagine a life in which we don't spend a large amount of our time criticizing ourselves and others, but we should keep in mind the self-love that is always in play. Self-criticism can be our most unpleasant, our most sadomasochistic way of loving ourselves. So, part of what we're understanding in our practice is the way our habits cut both ways. And I'm often, in talking to meditators, inviting people to perceive the kind of secondary gain of even some of the bad habits that we have that torment us. The kind of ambivalence with which we proceed in life. And there is love bound up in our hate. There is, even in self-harshness, as Philip suggests, there's a kind of underbelly of love in that. What is the self-soothing function of our hate? And we find that the capacity to tolerate ambivalence is a kind of important interpersonal development, achievement. And we know that, like, across a wide range of psychological difficulties, it's characterized by a lot of dichotomous thinking. Yes, no, unnuanced, unwilling to actually tolerate a measure of ambivalence, and so people oscillate between idealization and devaluation. So if we're to kind of make peace with ambivalence, to live not deformed by it, we need some measure of equanimity. And it's said that that old R&B song, the thin line between love and hate, but it's actually, I think, a thin line between clinging and hate, between the attempt to control and hate. And it's just that in the realm of love and care and personal investment, we tend to cling to that which we love. And so we often want to bring that which elicits strong feelings in us under control to resolve the ambivalence. But equanimity is required in this realm. And so we're developing the trait of equanimity, which is sometimes described as the kind of balance point between suppression on the one hand and entanglement on the other. And this equanimity is it's not accepting the conditions of one's life. It's accepting the momentary sensory impact of this moment. Equanimity in this moment does not imply passivity or activity in the next moment, but it provides more clarity on what is needed. And so we are really like readily opening to the experience of ambivalence in this moment. Sarah Lazar says, describes equanimity as widening our perspective from the kind of claustrophobia of controlling and trying to govern oneself, govern another, to a sense of the kind of like wider view. And it's literally like the quality of attention when we're in non-equanimity, in resistance of one kind, will tunnel vision. Literally the attention gets narrower. And then there's this sense of like opening back up to space and exiting the state of claustrophobic control. She says more readily engages incoming sensory information. So something's arising, so much gets evoked in the interpersonal realm. There's like almost nothing like the gaze of another to act as a kind of steroids for some of the grooves in our mind, you know? And it's like, and you know, it's like, we you know, sometimes, like I say, like, other people act as kind of steroids for our kilesas and our paramis. The kilesas kind of like habit energies that get us into trouble, greed, hate, delusion. And then the paramis, these beautiful qualities of heart. And other people are a little bit like a kind of cardiac stress test that brings to the surface, you know, right? The heart at rest, we may not discern no abnormal rhythms or something like that. It's only when I exercise that I can see the whatever, you know. And other people are like the kind of cardiac stress test around some of our habit energies, you know. And so, okay, so can I not, I don't even have to accept them, this person, this group, this whatever. It's like, can I accept in this moment the impact of their being, their behavior on me, right? Can I open to that landscape? And then Lazar says we're also disengaging from kind of reactive behavior and like moralistic judgment. This equanimity includes a kind of acknowledging, allowing, non-judging, non-attachment, and sometimes we know exactly what we need to equanimize. We know what's being evoked in us. We know almost like where to direct the equanimity. And sometimes we don't. It's like, you know, when I'm most in my kind of like most regressed state interpersonally, I do not know where to direct the mindfulness and equanimity. It's like this vague fog, you know, and all I notice is that the Dharma just feels like very distant, you know, and I don't even know exactly where to direct, like what is it? Normally I know I have a lot of kind of internal emotional clarity on like what needs equanimity, but sometimes when we're like in that kind of deep fog where the kind of impulses of fear and control, clinging, you know, are so deep, and we have no equanimity with the kind of ambivalence of the moment, it's hard to even know where to direct the mindfulness. What needs equanimity? And so sometimes in moments like that, it's often just best, if we can, not to do anything. Because most everything that emerges from us in those times, even if it's like masquerading as compassion or wisdom, it's just a kind of like wellspring of our own pain. And we can disguise it and make it sound like quasi-compassionate or something, but the other person always feels the defilement that's leaking out into those words and gestures. Does that make sense? Yeah? And it's like, okay, they can feel that somehow they're being controlled, somehow they're being misconstrued, somehow your compassion, it's not actually compassion, it's a kind of intolerance of their suffering or this moment, and then it just makes its way out. And so, okay, in those moments, there's a certain measure of kind of helplessness that I feel, even if it's not dramatic. It does not have to be a dramatic moment. It does not have to be like an epic relational meltdown or anything like that. But there's a certain measure of helplessness in those moments. And it's like, okay, can I open my heart to that? Can I actually open my heart to that? And to let those kind of moments really consolidate the motivation to continue practicing. Because once we're backed into those karmic corners of pain, it's very hard to make any move, And it's like everything I do feels defiled. And it's like all I can do is just try to feel this pain consciously so that it consolidates my motivation to love well, to continue practice at some point, hopefully not being backed into this corner in quite the same way. So, with our, because we're animals and vulnerable, dependent on many conditions, very natural for us to try to control. As psychoanalyst Stephen Mitchell says, we learn to love in the context of the contrived and necessary safety of early childhood, and love seeks perpetually a kind of safety that screens out the unknown. But in human relationships, safety and predictability are difficult to come by. We strive endlessly to reestablish the illusory sense permanence and predictability. When patients complain of lifeless relationships, it's often possible to show them how precious the deadness is to them, how it is carefully maintained and insisted upon. Love, by its very nature, is not secure. We keep wanting to make it so. And so with our escalating dependence on others, we try to make others predictable too, and routinizing the connection. And I'm sympathetic to that. How much anicca, unpredictability, uncertainty can a heart take? And we need some measure of predictability, but that predictability can kind of muffle the wildness of caring for another person, and they can become buried behind the plexiglass of our multi-layered concepts. And then every once in a while, you look at somebody. Sometimes I'll look at somebody I love, like when they're not aware I'm looking at them. And there's something about my gaze not evoking any self-consciousness in them. And I'll just kind of like ask the question, like, who is this? This person I know and love, or, like, who is it? And we can recognize that it's very easy just for them to be so deeply identified with their role in my life. And they get defined by that particular direction, that particular relationship. But they're only that to me and not that to anyone else exactly, right? And so we look at the ways in which that kind of need for security actually can deaden the sense of spontaneity, the full appreciation of the otherness of the other. Say a few more things, and then we'll open it. So one of the kind of persistent themes for me is kind of my need to refine my relationship to the suffering of the other, and refine my relationship with their greed, aversion, delusion. And it's of course a kind of major project to open to our own suffering, but sometimes the suffering of the other is even more evocative, and sometimes it's evocative in a way that opens us to compassion, but not always. And when we've entrusted our heart to another person by choice or by birth, that means that all of their suffering feels like our business, And when you're, a kind of child, like the suffering or imperfection of a parent or caretaker, that's not it has direct implications for your safety. It's not a cause for compassion. Like, it's a kind of existential threat, And that their pain is, at least in growing up, their pain, the kind of breaking of the illusion of that they govern samsara, breaking of the illusion that this parent is actually fully capable of keeping you safe. That's a painful shattering. And it almost feels like my reactivity now as adults, to people that I love is it has the echoes of that same desperate kind of like scramble to make their suffering go away. And what masquerades as compassion is actually the intolerance of their suffering. That's different. Compassion is love in the face of suffering. It's not actually banishing suffering. It's not controlling suffering. And so we can recognize. I sometimes have had the thought, like, I want everybody in my life, everyone that I love, to be completely, fully enlightened. I can be this basket of defilements, but I need them to be free of greed, hate, and delusion. And then maybe I would be able to love them in a patient way. I don't even know. I would probably find problems. It's like, okay, it's a testament to just how evocative the suffering of the other, what it does to our heart. And so this other species of equanimity, which I sometimes describe as love in the face of helplessness. I cannot govern this. I can offer my compassion, but that the power of my love is very limited. What I can do in many situations is very limited. Can there be the love in the face of helplessness? Love on the other side of our power? And the equanimity piece essentially purifies our compassion. It's a kind of like refines out some of the control and compulsivity in our compassion. And so we practice this. We practice this so that the compassion comes through as actual care, as love, rather than as controlling something or unwillingness to open to their suffering. So teach us to care, then teach us not to care, right? T.S. Eliot, teach us to sit still. All right, stop there. And it's open. We have 10 minutes for any question, discussion, anything on your mind. Could be with around this, could be anything. Happy to talk about whatever's on your mind. Yeah, please.
Thank you for a very nuanced discussion of our kileshas and paramis and vedanas and, how we, our consciousness under duress, when we're really regressed. I often have this feeling like at some point I recognize there's warning lights going off on my dashboard and I can't trust the gauges anymore. And instead of further investing in that person being wrong and me being right or anything, the best thing I can do is just pause, stop. Then I would say, no, a really risky place of not knowing. Like I might do the wrong thing, but I'd have to accept, well, maybe I'm going to be awkward. But it's really scary at times.
What does the fear feel like, or what's the scary dimension of that? I know what you mean, but
being publicly exposed is wrong.
Yeah.
Or something, but that I'm not in control.
Yeah. No, it's like I don't know, in these realms, like the ego has very familiar ground and a very familiar, our autobiography is like very familiar, feels very true, and all of a sudden somebody does something and it pulls the rug out from the egoic ground, and we're like, that's a very free fall, groundless kind of feeling. We usually try to reestablish the egoic ground by making, reinforcing our story rather than acknowledging okay, maybe they're right, but to be right, for them to be right, us to be wrong is a very disorienting experience,
And the sort of performative things we say afterwards, or other people say, have to be what they are, just what they are, Could you say more about the risk? You were talking about risks earlier. Well, I think just like you're saying, it's to my mind, a big part of Buddhist practice is a commitment to truthfulness. And a commitment to truthfulness means we live alongside the permanent possibility of being wrong. It's just like there. But that is very disorienting. And we talk all about self-doubt and this crisis of self-hate and self-doubt, but actually overconfidence causes much more problem, than self-doubt. And overconfidence sometimes described as like the parent of all psychological bias. Is overconfidence, and you feel that. It's like you can feel that in an argument with a love partner or whatever. It's like and you can sometimes tell you're like the lawyer making the argument and marshaling the evidence, but then you sense there's a little bit of gap there. Maybe they're right, but it's like, no, fuck it, keep going. It's just like plow through that little evidentiary gap where they're onto something, and you're like, It's like, okay, we sometimes are going to do that, but truthfulness, like that is like a moral commitment, and at some point it's like, okay, the defensiveness hurts, this is not going anywhere, and it's like, but it's very shameful, it's kind of like fearful and shameful to be wrong. And so in these realms you just have to acclimatize to desperation, and I know this is like not a great pep talk for relationships, but it's like everyone knows, it's like if you're unwilling to just be like flailing and desperate, and like your heart is like completely entrusted to the caretaking of another person, can't grow, and so some of it is actually meditation practice is like we are acclimatizing to helplessness moment by moment. You get that in a retreat. You sit for 5 days or 5 weeks or whatever, and it's like, okay, you really, really get like there are no moves for the ego to make, and every story we tell, you can tell is wrong, and it's just like, okay, here it is, and that is actually training to open to somebody.
My teacher used to say, whether tomorrow's going to be Armageddon or the New Age, the craving is the best thing I can do is quiet my mind. And often, certainly not always, I hear that, like, okay, pause, just come back to quieting mind. Because there is no move for the ego, as you put it so well.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Got time for maybe one more? Yeah, David. Hey.
There's a hand up on.
Oh, there's okay. Two more. Yeah. Tom, you want to go ahead?
Hey, Matthew, thank you so much for a really insightful talk. I really learned a lot from what you said about how our compassion for others and our caring about their suffering is often self-serving, like going all the way back to childhood. It arises out of this fear that if something happens to the other person. It reminds me, it tells me something about what my mother always used to say when I would leave the house. Like, okay, drive carefully, you be careful out there. And the subtext, I mean, it's a common thing, people well-wishing, like, oh, be safe. But the subtext to that is, because if anything happens to you, I won't be able to handle it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. No, it's these kind of karmic bonds that we call family. It's takes like a whole lifetime to understand. I don't even know if that's enough, And just I don't know. It just comes back to the kind of, for me, kind of poignancy of dukkha and anicca, that it's like ungovernable, and we love amidst ungovernability, and that's a very vulnerable position. And so we consent to some large measure of grief in caring, and that's just like, and if we can't do that consciously, we will kind of compensate with more control or something. But anyway, I appreciate the example you're sharing.
Thanks.
Yeah. David, please.
Thank you so much, Matthew. Beautiful. I noticed that, and it's a question I've had for you for a long time, actually, it's that it's one thing to be going through that whirlwind in sitting meditation, and another when I go to bed and all of a sudden it's just taken over and I'm not sleeping and it's there and there's no practice that I can pull to like calm it down or get up or whatever. That's always been the scariest moment for me, and then there's so much judgment about what I should be doing and how I should be responding, and but it's really that place where it's just there. The storm is just riding through, and trying to sleep through it, or pretending like you're sleeping, for me, is like really the most horrific. And almost more manageable when I'm sitting, because then I can, I can weather it a little differently. But anyway, that's just always that sleep mode where it's carried into that realm, and it's like really scary.
Yeah. So, and what's the emotional? What are the emotional flavors of that kind of mind state?
Well, same thing. Being found out, whatever it is. I fucked up, or oh gosh, or how can I mend that? And there's no way to mend it.
Right.
It's just like just being with that discomfort.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like we cycles of like rupture or repair are necessary. Like forgiveness, it's not one of the 4 Brahma Viharas, but it probably is like the 5th. For me, it's like, okay, there's kindness, love. I usually say love meeting goodness, compassion, love meeting suffering. Joy, love meeting good fortune. Equanimity, love meeting helplessness or the ungovernable nature of suffering. And then forgiveness, love meeting harm, And it's very easy for when, in my own attempt, it's easy for that to devolve into a kind of egoic story about the self or kind of like shame of exposure or something. And I think we can rescue that process of like atoning or something. In Buddhism it's usually called remorse, which is like this. Sometimes it's almost like the guilt is actually a defense against feeling the pain of it in a kind of unbuffered way. And it's like, and for me, I did something recently. It was not a big deal, but it was like a weird unconscious acting out kind of, it was something, and it was like, didn't even make sense, and it was so obvious I was going to get caught. It was literally not CCing somebody on an email, but it was like a big enough, I should have, right? And it was like, oh man, it was like, there was some shame in being exposed as like, I could no longer curate my sense of self. It was like, it was no longer, I didn't add up as this like dignified person or something like that. It was like, okay, all right, I got to be willing to be seen in that way. And I got to be willing to like really feel the harm, the pain of it, And for that to just consolidate my motivation to be careful in the future rather than like the egoic trip of guilt and compounding the self-story. And it's like, I'm this kind of, and it's like remorse is sort of, there's an element of guilt, but the guilt is like this self, adding this next chapter to our autobiography or something rather than just like, all right, let me just feel this pain. I caused some harm, and there's some part of my heart that really doesn't want to do that again. And it's like, and our unwillingness to be exposed will drive it all underground. And so it's like, it's got to be aired out. And then we need cycles of forgiveness, with others. And it's just like, that's going to be necessary to sustain care over time, in any kind of relationship or organization. Or so, Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay. Thank you, Henry. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah.
Do we have any announcements? Matthew?
Yes, I have 2 announcements. The first one is our organization is all volunteer run, and I'm going to be crafting a letter about volunteering for the Sangha this week. And all I know is, for me, GBF is a really important part of my life, and when we volunteer, we have once a year we have a volunteer appreciation day. And as I stated in the last one, volunteerism for me is my way of thanking the Sangha for what it provides me. And so next week, here's an opportunity for volunteering. Next week we'll be doing our mailing of our quarterly newsletter.
No.
No?
2 weeks.
Okay.
I thought it was the 24th.
No, it's the last. It's the 30th.
Okay.
It's the last Sunday.
Never mind. Anyway.
Be there.
Yeah. So much for that. But I'll just throw it out there anyway, that in 2 weeks will be, people can stay afterwards and help us mail. But in regards to volunteerism and the quarterly newsletter, we have two very big pairs of shoes to fill. Michael Murphy, who's edited our quarterly newsletter for I don't know how many years, is going to be stepping down. November mailing will be the last mailing that he's involved with, as well as Jack Busby.
Hello.
Some big shoes.
Yeah. Anyway, Jack, who works with the actual putting together the envelopes, the stamps, the mailing, the labeling, and all of that, so that we can put them all together here. He's going to be also stepping down. Big shoes to fill. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there. And then the second announcement is we're doing something different this year with our day long. In the past we've had it on a Saturday, but our day long this year will be November 23rd, and it'll be on a Sunday, so it will be in place of our regular Sangha meeting, and we're hoping with enough constant publicity people will understand that it's a day long instead of our regular GPO Sangha meeting. And David Moreno, who is just sitting right here, is going to be leading our day long. Maybe if you want to say a couple of words about.
Sure, thank you. The day long is called dynamic stillness. So the deliberate stillness is the other retreat. Dynamic stillness just means that we will have regular sitting periods alternating with breathing practices and somatic movement. So we'll go back and forth so that the sitting experience becomes more integrated and is able to transition in and out of these different states with grace and delight.
Oh boy.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Richard, 1 second.
Yes, Richard.
So I just wanted to add that there is registration going to be online, and there's a section there. We're going to provide you with lunch, so when with mayo, without mayo, meat, no meat, so it's really important that you do register so we know how many meals to get. And secondly, our fall retreat, September 25th to 27th at Land of Medicine Buddha, is filling up. There's still space. Our teacher is J.D. Doyle, and if you haven't been to Land of Medicine Buddha, it's quite a delightful place in the Redwoods. So all the information is on our website. We'd love to see you there.
Thank you, Richard. Any other announcements?
I'm the host. This is the host announcement. Please stay and enjoy the company of the Sangha. There are refreshments and hot water for tea. And there's some grapes and killer brownies, so for treats. I'll be going around with the Dharma bowl to accept contributions to cover our expenses. Your generosity is appreciated. Donation in the range of $10 to $20 help the Sangha meet its expenses. These include honorarium for our Dharma speakers, rent for this beautiful center, monthly dinners we prepare for Larkin Street Youth Services, our quarterly newsletter mailed mostly to people in prison. There's a newcomer's sign-up sheet on the credenza. If you wish to be included and receive our Sangha membership directory, please sign up and include contact information you wish to share with the group. Some members go out to lunch after the meeting. Everyone is welcome to join them. The group meets at the front door around 12:30 p.m.
Thank you, Stefan. So at this point...
Henry, I have a quick announcement, if I might.
Okay.
Just real quick, if anybody would like to join me along with E. Decker for her monthly evening of song and retreat, it's in Berkeley tonight or on Zoom. It's a sing-along with some of her music, all Dharma related, other stuff, or as I like to call it, a song-along. You can find all the details at edecker.com. Thanks.
Thank you. So let's form a circle and we'll do a final dedication of merit. Matthew, do you want to do dedication of merit or
Sure.
shall I?
Sure, you please.
Okay. I'm going to read our customary dedication of merit. By the power and truth of this practice, may all beings have happiness, and the causes of happiness, may all be free from sorrow and the causes of sorrow. May all never be separated from the sacred happiness which is without sorrow, and may all live in equanimity without too much attachment or too much aversion, believing in the equality of all that lives. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank you for your talk.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.